So, my name is Tania Bryer. I'm an anchor at CNBC, and I'm delighted to be your moderator for the very first session here at the Royal Albert Hall at the CogX Summit, AI and the Future of Work, Supercharging Industry Performance. We're joined today, very fortunately, by three visionary cross-sector leaders for a future-focused exploration of how AI is set to accelerate the global economy, enhance business efficiency, and greater productivity today. So please welcome my esteemed guests. Right next to me, I have Professor Dame Ottoline Leyser, who's the Chief Executive of UK Research and Innovation. Thank you so much, Professor. Next to Ottoline, I have Thomas Balkizas, Senior Director, Life Sciences of Microsoft UK. And last but not very least, please welcome Marika Auramo. Marika is the CEO of Vodafone Business. Well, thank you so much, all of three of you, for taking the time to join us here at CogX. And of course, we heard Charlie talking about how we seize the AI opportunity. How do we make the next 10 years better? And of course, you're here to tell us, within the workplace, the impact of AI, the transformative positives. There are concerns as well. But I'm actually going to start with you, Marika, if that's okay. It's proven, AI, to be a powerful tool in improving business operations. So could you share with our wonderful audience here some specific examples of how Vodafone Business is using AI to enhance productivity and also optimize performance?
Thank you, Tania. And more than happy to provide you with a few examples. So in Vodafone, when it comes to AI, we are focusing on three different areas. One is, of course, operational efficiency, which is, of course, very important. Then we want to rewire our business for better customer experience. And then we know that we should also unlock revenue potential when it comes to new products and services. But at the very same time, I think that we need to make our existing products and services more intelligent by using AI. And maybe I can give a few examples. In fact, I see that very often operational efficiency should also improve our customer experience. And one of the early use cases that we had actually already a few years ago, even before Gen AI, was in the area of our networks. So we actually saw a great opportunity to help our engineering teams and network planning teams to understand whether there is a network faults in order to go for predictive maintenance, or whether there are some network tariff surges that we need to take into consideration. And we were able to improve the network planning operations, but at the very same time, it meant that we were able to improve network reliability and customer experience. But more importantly, also, we were much better equipped to improve the network sustainability and energy efficiency. Okay. That was one of the examples. Yeah. Another is in the area of customer experience. Very important topic and very close to my heart.
Yeah, you've got customers here.
I know. Yes. And you are more than happy to come to me to provide your feedback. But definitely, we need to keep on enhancing our processes and practices around customer experience. I would like to give you with a few examples. One is that, of course, many operators, we have been using chatbots for years. Yes. But now we wanted to introduce a kind of intelligent artificial super Toby that is very much driven by AI capabilities. And once again, I'm pretty sure that many of you may have some experience of actually communicating and with chat boxes. So this is a next generation chat box who can also personalize the responses, be much faster when it gives information on the services that we are having, And also more complex answers can be given by the super topi. If for various reasons it cannot really handle the question by a customer, it automatically routes the question to the agent who is the best fit for that one answer. And then they can actually use new capabilities to really, instead of scanning all the different answers that you gave earlier to the customer, it actually gives predefined answers. And we have noticed that there is much more relevant information to be given the customers. We have also seen that the calls are taking less time, but more importantly, we have been able to improve our customer satisfaction rates. In fact, NPS scores have been growing very nicely, between 20 to 50%, depending on the country, and Super Topi speaks 11 languages.
So the impact is very positive, Marika, is what you're saying. And of course, we want to talk a bit about security later on, because that's key, and there, of course, are concerns with data privacy as well. Ottoline, I'm going to come to you next. I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, just to sit back a little bit, because I can't see Thomas. There we go.
You're not missing much.
Well, of course we want to see Thomas. Ottoline, how is the UK research and innovation prioritizing AI in its funding and support for research? And what role do you see AI playing in driving the UK's future economic and also industrial growth?
That's a huge question. So, UK Research and Innovation it's a very interesting organisation. We deploy about 45% of the public sector investment in research and innovation, and we cover all disciplines and all sectors. So we're a relatively new organisation, bringing together the 7 disciplinary research councils, and that's everything from engineering and physical sciences, where of course a lot of the breakthrough AI discoveries are supported, right through to arts and humanities, where we have big programs on ethics in AI, and also the Economic and Social Science Research Council, which is explicitly investing in understanding the future of work and also productivity. So the whole gamut is there with expertise, and we also invest block grants into universities, so that's very academic-focused understanding, and we Innovate UK is also part of our organisation, so we're investing in businesses across the country. So that puts us in a really exciting position as a kind of node in the system that's able to join all of this stuff up, which is absolutely critical, because as we know, AI is everywhere, it will transform everything, and we need somehow to keep all of that moving together so that the really rapid new discoveries can find their way into the businesses that need them, at the same time as a much more kind of fundamental transformation in skills, in adoption at that kind of more basic level is supported, again, right through the system, including in the research base. Obviously, all the other research that we fund itself will be transformed by AI. So it's a huge operation, and I'm very excited that UKRI exists and is actually a kind of USP for the UK, that we really can join all of that stuff up and hopefully steward the transition in the most efficient and effective way.
Ottoline, we'll come back to the subject of ethics a little bit later on, but Thomas, first, how is AI impacting you as Director of Life Sciences at Microsoft?
Thank you, Tania. So I think both Marika and Ottoline covered the importance of AI coming in as a general purpose technology and changing a lot. So I would say in life sciences, there's probably 4 or 5 things that are being affected. One is, it starts from research. So innovation is coming to the citizen, to the patient, much faster. So we're able to identify compounds and proteins much sooner, so targets. And then it impacts the whole value chain of manufacturing, so from clinical trials to manufacturing through to commercializing them. So we've seen maybe since COVID, 10 years of innovation in the space of 18 months. And then we discovered, or maybe we improved the large language models, and that was maybe a turning point in pharma and healthcare. What that means is that we already have the technology to use these agents as our assistants for anything that we do, not just generic co-pilots, as we call them, or assistants, but very specific to what Ottoline does, Marika does, and their teams. And that's exciting because we don't often, as humanity, have these general purpose technology paradigm shifts. We had it with the internet, and that took a while to proliferate. But we had it with electricity earlier on with the printing press. This one for pharma and healthcare, maybe education, is going to be probably the biggest transformation we've seen. It's going very fast. Even us, sometimes our customers will say, "You've just presented something. 2 weeks later, it's already slightly obsolete." And so it's changing. It's very exciting, but like every day feels like, wow, my jaw drops. And who knows what GPT-5 and GPT-6 will bring.
Do you think it could be going too fast? Ottoline, I know I've heard you talk about the governments not being able to quite catch up with the AI in terms of how it's moving forward.
Well, I think that there's a lot of work over the years on how you deal with new and emerging technologies, because by definition they're new and they're emerging, and particularly this one's changing very quickly.
Yes.
And so creating a kind of dynamic interaction between the technology and the opportunity and the regulatory system that supports that is really important. Some people will flag regulation as a sort of blocker, but actually it's a huge enabler if you get it right to allow new applications and so on to proceed with confidence. And the challenge with AI is because it is such a general purpose technology, it cuts across everything. And so there is an interesting question about how regulation for existing regulated sectors adapts to AI, but also whether general regulatory innovation is also needed. It's about agility and dynamism, and that is not always straightforward in a regulatory context, but it's got to be. So
maybe more regulation.
But regardless of the regulation, my question is that can we slow down? But we know, how fast the development and acceleration is actually in, for instance, in the US. I just visited actually on the West Coast, and it was amazing when you talked with some of these big guys, how fast they are developing new capabilities.
Marika, with that, what about employees? Are they worried, or how do you equip them with the right skills to adapt to this transformation?
Yeah. First of all, in Vodafone, we decided to introduce already, I suppose, 4 years ago, a kind of ethical AI, and we insist that everybody, not only our engineering teams, but legal and all the functions are following certain guidelines and rules that we need to set. You need to set certain guardrails. Yes, we are worried because I can also tell that we are impacted, so security is becoming very, very important topic, and we see it, and it was also confirmed by the recent Nokia report that cyber criminals are actually attacking on our infrastructure. Earlier it was once or twice a day. Now it's maybe 100 times per day. So therefore, of course, we need to be very much awake, especially around security.
What other job sectors do you think it'll transform, and in a good way, but also, of course, there are concerns for people that think that their jobs are at risk?
I'm glad you picked me, Tania, for this. So I think years ago, I did this at CogX maybe 2015, and the same question was asked, and I think my position on this has changed. I think all of the jobs will be affected. There will be very few that you can say, we remain so analog that AI is not affecting us in any way, meaningful way. But that's not only negative. I think we should take stock of the fact that there will be winners and losers, like with any general purpose technology. And we go back to maybe Industrial Revolution Britain with Luddites. They could have given John Ladd, I think it was John, and the other men that lost their jobs to women and children, maybe a slightly better, an increase perhaps, or better terms. They chose not to do that. That caused some segmentation and destruction in society. But their descendants made maybe 10 times the GDP and lived happier, healthier lives, longer lives. I think we should take lessons from that, historical lessons. Harari's written extensively about this. Our CEO of Microsoft AI, Mustafa Suleyman, a really good book I recommend to read. What I take from all of this is that as humans, as society, we need to be considerate about those who are affected, but also have faith. I'm an optimist that we will create a lot of wealth. We just need to make sure it's distributed more equally. If we go into the specifics, this is definitely a general purpose technology and innovation that affects cognitive workers. So it's not just people who are maybe doing manual labor that's now been taken by machines. Some of the cognitive functions seem to be able to be automated. So in the third wave, we're now in kind of first, second wave, we're becoming a bit more productive as employers, as employees and employers. And then in the second wave, we collaborate slightly better and we can start to automate. But the third wave, if you think of a driverless car, you've automated something that maybe millions of people are doing. So I think until we get to that stage, to artificial capable intelligence, there's still a lot to do, a lot of catching up to do with regulation. But it's affecting legal profession, construction, it's affecting pharma and healthcare. So it's everywhere. I think we need to move quickly with the times and be pragmatic about it and accountable.
What steps, Ottoline, is the UKRI taking to ensure that research institutions and businesses are preparing the workforce for these changes?
So, I mean, as we said, I think this is everywhere. And it's also moving very quickly, so actually it's also very unpredictable exactly what will happen and the order in which it will happen and so on. There is a huge general skills issue, and I think we need to, because of the speed at which things are going on, we need to kind of move away from the idea that, well, you train people in a pipeline, really to try to embed continuous professional development right across the system, really easy access to upskill people everywhere, or different skill people everywhere even, I think is key to all of this. And then, I mean, I think more broadly, this needs people. It needs to be about people. We need to make this entire revolution about people and the relationship between people and these new tools and the opportunity to think about what work means. It's about, people want to have fulfilling, purposeful roles in society, and their job gives them part of that. And if we put that at the front and center of how we operate through this and look, as you say, to the future, the kinds of roles that we will have, people will have going forward, rather than focusing on the loss of roles that are currently going on, the new types of roles that will be created, and really aim in that direction. I think that's a good way forward. Taking things away always feels painful, but giving new purpose and meaning to people through these incredibly powerful tools, I think, is a huge opportunity we need to focus on.
So being prepared. So Microsoft, Vodafone, how do you prepare your teams for the changes that AI will bring?
So I guess I can answer this because it feels like we're maybe the backbone on some of this innovation. So what I call the undifferentiated heavy lifting. In terms of our people, I think there's a strong focus on learning and development. So when we bring Copilot to customers like Vodafone, first we have to see how we are using it. So you roll it out, and then we make a bold decision to roll it out to everybody. There was a pilot, and then we gave it to everyone. And I remember you get some indication of how your team is using it. There was a very clear distinction. Those who were using it were more productive. They probably were getting a little bit more satisfaction from their role. So I resonate with what you said about customer satisfaction, also employee satisfaction. And then one question that you ask about these tools is, how would you feel if we took it away? And if maybe 90% of the people say, don't take it away, you're onto something. And so I think there's about 3 months worth of using these agents, they're not quite tools, before you can actually see their impact. And like with electricity, I can imagine, Edison inventing this, or whoever it was, I'm not going to get into the currency wars, but that was 140 years ago. How could they have predicted that we would be communicating the way that we are now? So we have to be careful. We're unleashing something that is very powerful, and hopefully we're giving people time and training and support to get accustomed to it. But it is important, I think, that people feel supported that this is seen as something that is an assistant to what you do. There's always a human in the loop. I think even if we automate some of the tasks, some of what is now a single task, every app that you have does one thing. But imagine if you had an app to do all of those things. How would that change your day-to-day work? And I think we're still finding that out. But we're doing so in a kind of a measured way, even though it's going very fast. We have a lot of focus on it, and security is one area where we've shifted engineering resources, about 30,000 engineers, to focus on the security of everything that runs on Microsoft.
Yeah, because you talk about unleashing, Thomas, don't you, and sort of not being able to catch up with what we've unleashed. Is that a worry and concern?
I agree with Thomas that, of course, training is one, but then you need to also accept that there must be a new way of working as well. So you need to make sure that there's a flexibility for the organization to start using automation tools. And also the leadership must actually foster this change management inside of the organization. That would be one. And we were just discussing with Thomas that before we decided to invest in Copilot at scale, we actually had a pilot group. And first, actually, results were not too encouraging. And then we started to actually shadow certain, pilot users, and we noticed that they didn't actually know how to use Excel or PowerPoint in the most efficient way, including me. So you needed to actually make sure that you also get the basics right, and then you started actually get the right results.
Of course, Ottoline large enterprises and companies have the resources to fully integrate AI. What about SMEs, small, medium enterprises? What advice, how can you help them adopt and develop AI technologies and boost productivity and their industry performance? And of course, you've talked about having this equality, having this access for everyone.
Absolutely. So a lot of our AI programs are very specifically about shortening the distance as much as possible between the discovery science and SMEs and a wide variety of users in the economy. So we have a whole range of programs, the Innovate UK Bridge AI program, for example, but also national institutes like the Turing, whose job it is, at least partly, to interact with those businesses and provide for them the opportunities that they need in their business. And of course, that itself is a business opportunity. So there are now an increasing number of companies starting up to help other companies to adopt the technologies. And it's very important that what the public sector do encourages that, precisely because it's a growth opportunity. We don't want the public sector investment to be in any way undercutting the opportunities for the private sector to do the extraordinary things that the private sector does.
How do you keep it fair and equitable?
Oh, maybe I would like to actually bring up also another topic, especially here in the US. Many mid-sized companies, they are not here in London, but they are actually spread across the whole UK. And maybe our cellular network might become a bottleneck because AI, what does it require? Low latency and speed. And there are too many areas still where you don't really have low latency or fast connections, and this is definitely something that we need to work on here in the UK.
What kind of conversations are you having, Marika, with your customers and your partners?
Everybody is right now working on AI. I haven't had any discussions with any of my customers who shouldn't actually tell that that is one of the key priorities. But it's also on how you actually make sure that you have the right data management framework inside of the company, because you need to actually make data as a strategic asset. So this is clearly one of the key discussions. And also on how you start actually measuring the success. And you need to be very actually bold enough to introduce certain use cases, but then immediately when you see that, hey, this is really bringing some additional advantages, how you are fast enough to start scaling such a use case in the organization. That is also one of the topics that we are discussing with many of the customers. And we are serving very small customers, mid-sized customers, and large customers, including public sector. And clearly, actually, the discussion points are pretty much the same, regardless of the company size.
What concerns come up with them when you talk to them?
cybersecurity and security, that is one of the key concerns that we all have. So I would say that this is one. And then, of course, as a consumer, I suppose we are also talking about the sustainability aspect, because we know that many AI use cases are actually, they are requiring a lot of and huge data sets, consuming a lot of energy. We know, and I'm pretty sure that Microsoft is very much talking about on how we can also be sustainable at the very same time when we are actually speeding up, the adoption of AI.
How can you, Thomas, be sustainable at the same time as growth?
Yeah, I think it's a very important point, because there comes a point where discussing this with people in the water industry, for instance, that there may not be enough water to cool down these data centers, because they have such a, every time you use AI, there is a compute element to this, which goes back to servers that are more efficiently run by hyperscalers, not just Microsoft, but also Google and Amazon and others. So it's a top priority for Microsoft. So we're aiming to be carbon negative in the next, I guess, 6 years by 2030. So there's a few things. I think AI can be one of these technologies that you can use to accelerate sustainability. It's a very complex problem, because the energy usage tends to vary quite a bit. So it's very difficult for any one algorithm to say, well, shift resources from here to there. So it's one of those where if you implement machine learning and deep learning reinforcement algorithms, you can find the peaks and troughs, and you can rebalance the energy in a country like the UK or in Ireland or sometimes the whole of the US. So I have a very high hopes about what we can do with AI in sustainability. But also it's a policy decision that if we shift so much of our resources into using these data centers, then we need to invest in making them more sustainable. And that includes the materials that we use, it includes how we use water, how we repurpose and clean water, and what is our tolerance for maybe, as you say, are you willing to sacrifice experience and performance for sustainability, like including our travel? We're willing to cut back on it a bit. And I'm sure I would be willing to cut back a bit on my travel.
But of course, I think there are also research opportunities in more energy efficient chips and more energy efficient algorithms. And I think as the energy and water demands rise, then there is a huge incentive to try to loop back and work in a much more energy efficient way if we possibly can.
Maybe one actually additional comment. It was actually brought up by my son, who is actually working in the creativity industry. And so he's producing videos and ads for many of the brands. And he was telling that infringement and breach of IPR is a very, very important topic for creativity industry. So how do we make sure that IPRs are being respected by everyone? Because, of course, AI can also reuse some of the content that has been created by someone else.
A lot of things to balance and think about, Ottoline, with the growth. But how does the UKRI address diversity and inclusion in its AI-focused research?
Gosh. So again, and this is a huge question, and with multiple layers. I think, as we've discussed, every area of our economy will be affected.
Yes.
And if we adopt that very human-centric approach to the huge benefits that can emerge from people and AI working together, or people using AI in a constructive way, then there's absolutely the opportunity to make this industrial revolution much more inclusive in terms of equitable distribution of the benefits, but also in terms of who is able to participate and how. Now, when you talk about inclusion and AI, people usually move immediately to the challenge with current data sets, which quite often are not representative of the full range of people and opportunities. And so there is a danger of building exclusion on top of the current exclusive situation. And that's something that I think we all need to think very hard about in the context of data. We haven't talked a huge amount about data yet, but obviously all of
data protection as well.
It's built on very high, it's built on data. And so our data sets become particularly crucial. And I think this is another area where the public-private sector interface is so critical. There are fantastic data sets in the private sector, but also fantastic public sector data sets. And if we can really marshal all of those in a very positive way that brings people with us so that people understand what the opportunities are and feel confident that benefit will emerge, then I think we're in a very powerful situation to address some of these equitable benefit questions.
Do you feel that people need more persuading, Thomas?
I think so. I was, as Ottoline was speaking there, I was thinking one example that's kind of close to my heart and that of my teams, which is clinical trials and research. So there's an underrepresentation of women in clinical trials, which leads to women experiencing 2 times or more the adverse events from medication. So it's a complex problem to solve, because how do you encourage women to come to clinical trials where most of the clinical trials take place in places like Stanford or maybe even Imperial College, where it's usually white males that are 21 years old and they row and they have a different physiology to most women. And so there's a role for technology and pharma and public sector to play in this. You have to make it such that people know what it is that they're getting into. This is just one example of data sets, probably the most sensitive data set, which is genomic data, demographic data. I think you've got to be honest about the fact that we haven't done inclusion very well, at least in my industry. I don't know how you feel about your industries. And there is an opportunity maybe now with AI to say, because data becomes so paramount in how we make decisions and how we build products and how we create experiences, to bring that, to build inclusion in it. And that's maybe one of the foundational principles of AI.
Ottoline.
I would agree with that. I mean, you talked about persuading people, and I think as soon as you use that language, you're kind of in the wrong place.
Right. They shouldn't have to be.
We're not about persuading people.
No.
What we need to be about is co-creating with people the programs that we're building to make the most of these opportunities. And actually, it's one of the things that I'm excited about in the context of research and innovation is the extraordinary involvement now of patient groups deep in the research process and properly contributing to prioritizing the research activities because their expertise is so valuable to the researchers. And it's that flipped kind of understanding of where the expertise lies that I think is so important. Everybody has expertise. If we can bring that all together, we can make much more progress.
Yeah.
But maybe one additional element, AI can also help us to be less biased. So for instance, when you actually start scanning candidates, external candidates, and if you can actually anonymize the data and information, because we know that anyone can have also a biased mindset when you are recruiting new people. So we have seen a nice actually also benefits of having AI actually scanning all the external candidates in order to avoid bias selection process.
Well, Marika, unfortunately, we've only got 1 minute, just under a minute left. I know that you have to catch a plane. Thomas, Ottoline, Marika, just finally, can you tell our audience, if we're sitting here in 5 years' time, maybe not at the Albert Hall, but at a CogX conference, what will we be talking about? Or will it be us? Will it be?
I think we'll look back and say how things have developed, but how many good things have happened in the last 5 years. So, we'll be talking about maybe freeing people up to do more creative work and elevating the human consciousness from doing menial tasks to doing more meaningful work, as you say. I think people are looking for meaning and they're looking to do things. And maybe look back at some of the things that we didn't get right. I'm sure there'll be opportunities for improvement.
I'm sure that we are not talking AI anymore. It's embedded to our processes, tools, practices. So maybe we are talking about something else. I don't know what that might be.
Seizing the AI opportunity?
Yes. Well, I guess my vision would be for optimism. I mean, we're in a very challenging situation in the world, huge, geopolitical unrest, climate change, major challenges. We have extraordinary tools available now. If we properly can bring people together to focus on those challenges, we have an opportunity, I think, to generate that more purposeful, cohesive, optimistic society that can take us forward. That's what I hope we will be talking about in 5 years.
Well, thank you, Ottoline, for leaving us with that word of optimism, the message of hope. You've all heard it. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking our esteemed panel. Thank you so much.